Hi. Hello, everyone. This is Tony Clark. I'm here with Joe Cliffe, current treasurer of the IWCOA, for our first official podcast. So, Joe, just talk about yourself. Let the people know who you are, your wrestling background, your coaching background, and just where you've come from at this point.
I grew up in the '60s in DeKalb, and I was fortunate enough to be in a program that which started off with getting younger kids involved in wrestling. Back then, '50s and '60s, there was a lot of programs starting up. The programs that were existing and dominant at the time, the Provisos and the Tildens, they just had good athletes, and they would all start in high school. Then it evolved into the '60s where they were getting younger kids involved, and the park district programs would start, and they would have the tournaments in the wintertime in the Chicago area at the various parks, and young kids were getting involved in wrestling. Kids were getting involved at a younger age. I started in sixth grade, which at that time was pretty young. And by the time I was in high school, I had a little bit of background in the sport. Um, so we progressed through, and we had a successful program in DeKalb. It started by Don Flavin in a 51 or 52, and went through the history. Since their first season, they've only had one losing record, and that's a pretty huge accomplishment for a program. They've accomplished 1,000 wins. Other schools in the state have accomplished that as well. But Granite Cities and the Leidens and the Oak Lawns and the Chicago schools, Tilden, Lane, and those, they were the forerunners, proviso, of getting the sport going. I wrestled at DeKalb. We won a state title in '68 when I was a junior. We won by 1 point. Can't remember. Oh, we beat Leiden. That's who it was we beat. Somebody had a first round pin that got us over
I
that.
think the Leiden fans, if they're listening, they're gonna dispute this.
That was for Augie.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, winning that state title was huge. Then Wayne Miller took over as our head coach the next year. I placed fourth as a junior, and then fourth again as a senior. Went on to wrestle at NIU. I was a little small for Wrestle 118. I got a lot of freestyle and Greco experience and won a couple Greco titles, placed in freestyle nationals 4 or 5 times. I was fortunate to have my brother younger than me. He won 2 state titles, and we had a great workout set up. It was kind of thing where we'd get done with the tournament and we'd come back. For some reason, we always had keys to the mat room at the high school, and we'd go up there and work out and show each other what was going on. Then after college, I went into coaching and coached at Georgetown, Illinois for 4 years, and came back up to northern part of the state and coached at Plano for 14 years, and then went down to Prairie Central, and I was there for 15 years. Took a stint after I retired, was a junior high coach for a while, and then took the head coach at El Paso for a couple of years. Stepped down and was brought back in, and then was a volunteer assistant last year. Helped them a little bit when they lost their coaching staff in the middle of summer. That's kind of where I've been through the years. A lot of the kids that I've had have, uh, you know, allowed me to get. For some reason, when you get a state champion, you're the guy that guided him. Some of those kids just did it on their own and did it themselves. I was lucky enough to be in a chair with them, and you get a few accolades because of that. So I was fortunate to get that.
How many state places, just off the top of your head?
State placers,
Yeah,
I would probably say in the neighborhood of 35,
that's
something
a
like
lot.
that.
You remember your coaching wins?
My what?
Your coaching wins. How many coaching wins do you have?
Oh, I think I ended up with 567, somewhere around there.
It's a lot for a guy of your young age.
Yeah,
500 is a milestone for a lot of
yeah,
people.
yeah. It is. It says something about a guy who does accomplish that. I'm not trying to blow my own horn. Guys who get 400 and 500, those are guys that have stayed with the program and not got out for any reason. They stuck with the kids and loyalty to the kids. And you got to give those guys credit because there's a lot of coaches that are climbing a different ladder. They have different agendas, and Nothing against them for that, but they may go into administration, or they may have another sport that's their number one love, and they may go into that, or quite simply just get burned out or something, makes them angry and they decide to walk away. So a guy who sticks with it for 400 or 500 wins, they've endured a lot. Had a few meetings with parents and some administrative issues and stuff like that they've battled through and handled well, and so it says something for them, like I said.
Yeah, true. You mentioned Georgetown was your first coaching job.
Yeah, it was funny because when I graduated, when I was in college, I had this mindset. Everybody told me there's a lot of PE teachers out there. You're not going to get a job. Blah blah blah. Well, in my infinite wisdom, I say, I'm going to be a PE teacher, and they're going to want me because I'm going to be a good wrestling coach, and I know my stuff, and I'm okay. Well, I couldn't convince a few administrators for a few years of that. I was at the point I was working in business, delivering newspapers or working for a guy and managing the company. There was a point where I was going to pull the plug, and I was doing officiating, which kept me involved in the sport. And I got a call from my high school coach, who was now at NIU, Don Flavin. I was bartending, and he called me up and he says, "Hey, I got a guy called me. He needs a coach, and they want to talk to you about it." I said, "Okay." He says, "Here's the number. Call him right now." I said, "I'm working right now." He says, "You better call him right now." So I told the guy I was bartending with, he says, "I got this call I got to make." He said, "Okay, yeah, go ahead." So I called. It was on their dime. That was back when long distance calls, they billed you for. You didn't have free dialing and all that. So I called and talked to him, and they said, basically, I want you to come down and interview. And he told me, it's a formality because if you don't take this job, I got to be the head coach, and I don't want to be the head wrestling coach. So I took the job, and I thought, I've got to get my foot in the door somehow. I had a good group of kids, and it was enjoyable. But we were 200 miles or 4 hours away from home, and my wife, her dad was, ailing a little bit, and we wanted to get back in the area. So we stayed there for 4 years and got going and got my feet wet and learned a lot from some of the guys that were down there. We competed with Muhammad and Hoopson with Jim Richards and Moose Hanlon and those kind of guys, and Joe Somerville. And the first tournament I was in was Joe Somerville was running a tournament and seating meeting, and it opens your eyes a little bit when you see these guys, and so that got me going. And then I got the job in Plano, and I was there for 14 years and had a good amount of success. An opportunity opened up for me at Prairie Central, and I moved on to there because the position was going to be allow me to move into a little bit more of an administrative type of a position without being an administrator. As I moved into a cooperative education program where it was a 9.5 months or 9.75 contract, and the pay was better. So that's why I did that, and retired in 2011.
Yeah. Now your brother was an AD, so you were never an AD?
No, and as much as he talks about ADs, administrators, when he was coach and he took an AD job, I thought, what's wrong with you, dude?
Yeah.
But anyway, he liked it, and he did a great job when he was at Burlington. And they loved him because he took care of people. He's like a coach, and he was a coach's AD, and he wasn't the kind of guy that some ADs are their administrators first and looking out for the coaches and teams later, and that's not what he was.
Yeah, I remember when he was coaching, he used to bring his team up to the Waukegan Bay tournament in my early coming up years, and he was a little firecracker.
Oh yeah,
but he always treated me right, and we I've never ever had a crossword with your brother ever in any match situation.
I can't say the same.
He's just one of those guys. Well, you guys may have crosswords with each other. Yeah. I'm quite sure you guys had some battles, just like you said, just amongst yourselves. So you've had a long history. You retired. You're still with us. But now let's talk about the IWCOA. You're one of the guys that's been around for a long time. Let's just let everybody know, how did you get started with the IWCOA? How did it come about, as far as you know? And let's just talk about its history.
Well, I remember the IWCOA when I was in college, and my high school coach was one of the organizers of the IWCOA. He and Wayne Miller was my high school coach. Steve Combs and Eddie Wald. Those are the guys that got it going, got it off the ground. Uh, the banquet was held in DeKalb in '71, first banquet that they had. All the second one was in '72, and they had a Hall of Fame induction at that time. And I was kind of aware of what it was. And then when I had my first state place winner in at Plano in '83, I went to the bank with the kid. Took the kid. I thought it'd be a really cool thing for him. And the kid, he was recognized. He got a certificate for being an all-state wrestler. And I realized, thinking back to words that my high school coach told me, he says, you got to be involved. You got to pay it forward, and give back to the sport, more than what you got from it. And I realized what the sport had given me over the years and how it established a mentality in my mind that, I talk to our kids about the three C's, the self-confidence, the three selves, self-confidence, self-discipline, and self-reliance. And that carried over, and I thought I need to get involved in this organization. And a couple of years later, when I had a couple more kids going to the banquet, I talked to some of the guys who were involved, like Rick Mann and Tom Haniff, and I said, what can I do to help? And at that time, they were doing everything with paper and pen and writing stuff out. And I was starting to get involved in computers and stuff like that. And I was probably a step ahead of those guys, which is kind of funny, me being a step ahead of somebody technology. But, I said, let me help out. I said, what can I do? And that's when I became secretary, and I started typing the minutes out, and I started sending mailings out to the people involved and the members. And at the time, the membership was about 80 to 100 people, and that's not really enough to carry much weight when you want to say something. And I knew that we had to get our membership up, and I pushed to do that. And once I did that, I got more involved and more involved. And somebody like Eddie Walt, Eddie Walt was a person that basically pushed me to get more involved, get more involved. You can do more. You can do more. And that's when he got me involved in the Hall of Fame and on that committee and doing stuff with it. And the story of him bringing the pictures over and everything that we can get to a little bit later. But, that's what kind of got me. It built a passion that here's the guys that, that built this organization. And so that's why I kept going and, became secretary. And then later on, when Larry Gass was treasurer, he wanted to step down. I took over the treasurer's position. I think I was secretary treasurer for a couple of years, president for a couple of years, then took the treasurer's position back. And the organization has grown over the years, membership wise, especially, for a lot of reasons. Number one, we're doing a lot more of the things that our mission statement tells us we should do, working for the coaches and working for the kids and educating them and awarding, recognizing the accomplishments of everybody that's involved in the sports. That's why I got going. And then it just kind of, once you're there, you just got to keep going because this is what it's about.
Let's talk about that recognizing why. I know it, but we want the people listening to us right now. Can you expound on that? Talk about why that is so important that we recognize people's accomplishments as an IWCOA.
Okay, that's a good question because, all right, here I am battling and I'm working and I've got an administration that I'm fighting and I'm tugging away and I pass 300 victories or I pass 400 victories, and our statewide organization recognizes me for that. That tells me, hey, you know what? I'm in this for the right reason then. And you're not in it to get recognition, but you get recognized for being in there for the right reason. And you're there for, you're not there for the applause, you're there for the cause. And that's why we need to recognize the people for what they do. And, everybody likes a pat on the back. We all know that. And it's very important to have these people receive that. So that's why we recognize them.
So
whether it's
not just the Hall of Fame, but some of the other things, if you can just expound on some of the recognition we give out other than just the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, we're not only the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame was established in 1972, and it's built on itself. But since then, we award, a coach of the year, assistant coach of the year, an administrator of the year, and coach of the year, assistant coach of the year are in 1A, 2A, 3A, and girls, wrestler of the year in all of those classes. Recognize kids for their academic achievement, not only as Scholastic Wrestler of the Year, who goes to a wrestler who's placed in the state tournament as a senior and has a high academic achievement. We also recognize kids that are juniors and seniors that have high academic standards, high grade point average, with a certificate for being a member of the academic all-state team. Major accomplishment for lifetime service to the sport. For somebody who's, maybe not, there's a lot of people that do things in the sport that may not be Hall of Fame worthy, but they're recognized, they should be recognized for what they do. We give silver level for, like, example, a 4-time state champion, 500 wins, that kind of thing. Silver level, 400 wins, a 3-time champ, multiple state place winners. Bronze level, in addition to the wrestling accomplishments, the number of state tournament guys officiated. So we do a lot of things to recognize the guys that are guys and girls that are involved in this sport and the major things that they do.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The IWCOA also is instrumental in the Grand March selection for the IHS.
Exactly right. The IWCOA was instrumental in getting the Grand March started. I believe it began in 1977. Since that time, since the implementation of it, started with 2 Grand Marshals, and we went to the 3, multiple classes, expanding that. We expanded the number of Grand Marshals to 4, and recognizing people that have done some outstanding things, not only whether it's coaching achievements, wrestlers have achieved a lot and used high school wrestling as a springboard to their accomplishments. Those are all reasons why these people have been recognized as Grand Marshals. And now we recognize Grand Marshals at the girls' state tournament as well.
So we know the IWCOA is there to award and like you said, a pat on the back for a job well done. You mentioned some of them, lifetime service, the Hall of Fame, some of the various gold, silver, bronze awards. What else do you see as one of the IWCOA's crowning achievements outside of just rewarding and awarding wrestlers, coaches, officials, and administrators?
I think one of our crowning achievements has been within the last couple of years is the movement that we've made to getting girls wrestling recognized by the IHSA. And I've been at the National Wrestling Hall of Fame chapters convention and listened to some of the other states talk. I was there about 4 years ago, and Illinois was just getting ready to start sanctioning girls wrestling. And what we had done with the IWCOA is, with hosting a girls and state tournament and pushing for the IHSA to recognize it, we were light years. We were ahead of other states in what we had done, because other states talked about where they were on it. And there's other states that sanctioned girls wrestling before Illinois did, but Illinois did sanction in a large way, and mainly because of the IWC.
Yeah, and I just saw. Well, I talked to Elliot Hopkins over at the Federation. I mean, they're really happy. There's over 74,000 participated last year. So girls wrestling has come a long way. I know Texas has been doing it almost forever, places like that, Hawaii. But I'm very proud of what we've accomplished with our girls wrestling. And you're right. The IWCOA was very instrumental in running a girls tournament before the IHSA even thought it could be possible.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. That opened up their eyes that the need was there.
I think that the IHSA was looking at maybe 5 years down the road from when they started it. It would be something. And I think we pushed the calendar up for them, and it would, they recognize that this needs to be done. And the fact that the advisory committee had enough people on it that wanted to work at finding a way to do it. And that's the whole thing. You can come up with an idea, but finding a way to do it is sometimes hard, and you have to put your nose to the grindstone and go at it. And luckily we had the guys to do
another
that.
thing I want to just, talk about with the IWCOA. What were you doing during COVID?
What was I doing? I was waiting for things to start,
Yeah.
and we were planning and planning, and we here we are. It's going to be a two week late start. Oh, it's maybe after Christmas, and okay, maybe it's this. Then we find out it's going to be that, but they're not going to have a state tournament. We, as the IWCOA, says that ain't happening because we got all these kids in the state. We've got that want to have an opportunity to wrestle for a state title. They're granted a lot of them chose. Okay, it's going to be a spring. We're going to wrestle in the end of June. I've got things to do. As a senior, we lost a lot of them. It's disappointing that there's a lot of kids that were seniors that could have placed that didn't. But that was their choice. But the big picture is the IWCOA rolled up its sleeves and ponied up and really committed a large amount of money that we potentially could have lost. And we were willing to do that for these kids to be able to have an opportunity to wrestle during COVID. And the committee that was there, and it was headed by Rob Porter, and we, to credit everybody that was there, I may not have agreed with everything that we were doing. I might have done this or done that. And I'm speaking for a lot of the guys on the committee, but we went with, we got to get this done. And whatever Rob Porter says, we're going to do it. And that's why it worked. And, that's how things work a lot of times. Okay, you got the hat on. Let's go with it. You're wearing the boss hat. I'm going to follow your lead.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we are probably for IHSA sports, we're probably only coach and officials association.
I believe you're right. Yeah, because at the time in 1970s, one of the big things was back in 69, 70, 71, when they started the organization, they wanted to educate the officials as well. They wanted these coaches, they wanted to go, well, I don't want to be taking this guy, I don't want to be yelling at this guy all the time. I want him to be making the right call. And the officials are going, I want to make sure that these officials know this is why this call is this. And they work together, and guys like Tony Lacosi, Jack Lee, Sam Samorian, those guys are the ones that formed organizations throughout the state and put together some ideas. How should this be called? And that is what the IWCOA has carried over, and that's our officials clinic. It's huge right now. What the IWCOA does for training officials, it's a huge asset for the sport itself, because now a greater majority of guys walking out there with stripes on have an idea, what am I supposed to call? And back 30 years ago, it wasn't that way. It was, I read a rule book, I took a test, and I walked out there. I could not, when I was a young coach, there was guys out there that officiated, had no idea what they were doing because there wasn't a training for them. And nowadays we have that. If you've got some kind of knowledge of athletics, you may not have to be a wrestler, but you can be taught how to officiate with a program the IWCOA has.
Yeah, and what I've always, because I go to the July IHSA officials conference, which is, officials of all sports here in the state of Illinois. And as we're sitting and talking, and I've been on a lot of various committees with other sports officials, one of the things I always talk about in our world is not only do we have one association where officials and coaches come together, we're a sport like no other, to where we go to these tournaments and we're there for 8, 9, 10, 11 hours.
That's true.
We break bread together. We actually sit together and eat. We don't go get our plate of food as officials and then go someplace else. The coaches, we sit there and mingle with the coaches, and then when we get back to the action, we're back to all, because as officials, we're competitors too. Because we pride ourselves on trying to do the best job possible. So we compete against each other, how none of us are perfect, but how good of a day am I going to have? How many times am I not going to get called to the table? That's how we judge ourselves, not getting called to the table for, anything that's, hey, Tony, are you sure about that call? Blasey, blasey. If I'm getting called to the table, it's like, do you know what time we're going to have a lunch break here? Or, how much longer is this going to go?
Yeah.
We pride ourselves on that. But a lot of other sports, officials, groups, they don't sometimes believe me, or they think we're crazy, that we are one family. We're not two different groups. Yes, we're officials and coaches, but what we do when we come together to make things happen for wrestling is amazing.
There's a lot to be said for that because, nobody's perfect. You may not have the bad interpretation of that call, maybe yours as that official. And if I know you as a coach and I have a relationship, I just sat in there and had a cup of coffee with you, and I'm out there now, you're refereeing, and okay, I'm going to go, he's not doing this on purpose. He disagrees. I disagree with what he called, but that's his call. I'm going to live with it. We can deal with that more so if then one of us is on an ivory tower looking down at the other. And the sport can't exist with us having that type of antagonistic attitude towards each other. And it doesn't benefit the kids. And bottom line, we're here for the kids. And if you don't have that idea in your head, you need to get out. So, and that's what makes the sport better because, the coaches that are coming through now are a little bit more in tune to that. The officials that are being trained by our clinicians are in tune to that. They understand it, build a little bit of rapport with the coach a little. I think you guys talk about that quite a bit. Know where this guy's coming from. That makes everything a lot easier.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I just love it. I mean, I grew up in this relationship. Some of the people you talked about, the Jack Leese and Al Samorian. I grew up under those guys, learning the ropes. And that was one of the things because they also came from that coaching background. And, they taught us at that young age, we have to coexist. And you use the best word that they've always used to throw out there, trust. That trust factor, you have to earn that trust that you're going to do the best job possible. So I'm a product of those people growing up. I never thought I would, at age 60, going on 61, that I would be sitting in the position I am now. I was one of those guys that came along in 1984. I didn't know what the IWC was. I didn't know what the state tournament, as far as how you get there as an official or anything like that. That was never in my mind. As I got around good coaches, like your brother when he was at DeKalb, and funny story about him because you said he was over at Burlington Central, and I remember when he got there, he had called me from there, and he said, "Tony, I was just going through some files, and I found an ejection on one of my coaches here that you had done before I got there." And I said, "Really? Yeah, you tossed out the head coach." I said, "Oh, yeah, I remember that. Wasn't it was nothing egregious. We just had a disagreement. We had just met each other, basically, and I think it was Kip Crandall,
Might have
if I'm not
been.
mistaken. Yeah, he said so. Your brother, he had a big
2
laugh.
years before Dan.
Yeah, and he was like, I've seen you a lot, and we've been around each other a lot. I didn't know you had that in you to just toss a guy out like that." I said, "Well, did you read it?" He said, "Yeah, yeah, but I don't believe he said it. No." So he just gave me a hard time. But it was things like that you know reminded me patience. The late Tim Dodge, he and I used to wrestle together a lot, and that was one of the things he always preached: patience. Tim and I would ride to a lot of tournaments together, a lot of the big events back in those days, and he was the driver. And I had to look up on the website and what teams are going to be in this tournament. And then once I told him the team, he says, "All right, go find out who the coach is," because Tim believed in addressing every coach, Coach Cliffe, Coach Jones, you know, whether he had met you or not, he was able to put coach in front of it and call you by your last name because he put that in his memory as we were driving down. And he was one of those guys. I mean, he showed me, man, it's a lot to this sport, not just me going out there with rule knowledge and being able to call a takedown, but how to treat people. I mean,
Right.
that was one of the biggest things I learned from him, how to treat people.
Part of being professional.
Yeah.
And if you're professional as an official, you're professional as a coach, you're going to gain the respect that's needed You don't have to do anything else other than that. And I'm not saying I've always been perfect. I've gotten on guys, and I still Jim Carnahan still needs a new pair of pants from state tournament for me, and he gives me a bad time about that all the time.
Yeah.
And, how do you give a kid 4 stall calls? He says, I'm lucky I didn't give him a 5th. But in retrospect, you can look back and okay, you're emotionally involved in it as a coach and as an official. You're not supposed to be, and the more you get less emotionally attached or can separate yourself as a coach, you deal with things better. A big thing is the camaraderie with the officials. Dealing with them. When you sit there in a hospitality room and listen to Joe Peterson and Dave Matthews tell jokes for 20 minutes, and they go out there and they can blow every call in the world. You're not going to say anything because those guys were just hilarious.
Yeah, they kept you laughing.
They were pretty good. They were good officials on top of it, but you had that issue with had that with them, the relationship, I guess.
We've been talking about some of the officials, the coaches. Just real quick, tell me some of your memorable wrestlers. Some people that just stick out in your mind today.
Oh boy, you're gonna put me on a spot here because then every one of those kids is gonna go.
How did you
I'll tell you a story about one of them. I got actually 2 of them, but they're kind of memorable. One of them, he's a returning state champion. He's undefeated his junior year, undefeated his senior year, took 4th as a sophomore. Hurt his hand in sectional. Actually wrestled state tournament with a broken hand. We taped it up and kind of didn't tell anybody and just kind of went through it, lived with it, but he was good enough. Anyway, in the finals, he gets to the finals, handle everybody. He was just a great technician. He was kind of kid that, his parents were good friends of ours. They'd invite us over for dinner and things like that. In second period, he's on top. He's got a 2-0 lead and just gets his head too high. And as it is, the kid just grabs it. Strong kid from Clinton, grabs his head, pulls him over. He went down like a brick wall. Okay. Going through my mind, I thought he was on his back for about an hour. And I'm going through my mind, I'm going, how am I going to explain this to his dad that I just cost this kid this match? And we had worked on something during the week of getting off your back, how you throw your punch through and drive through. All of a sudden, I see his fist punch through. He gets back to his belly. He's down 5-2 now. He fights back. And then he outscores the kid, beats him like 10-6 or something like that, and wins the state title. So I didn't have to explain to his dad what happened. But that was kind of a memorable thing. It kind of shows you something small that we worked on during the week that the kid set in his mind. And as funny as the workout partner, he said he was with, I said, okay, let's work on getting off your back. And they were getting kind of lazy. And he says, workout partner says, you're never on your back. You don't have to do that. And this kid says, his name's Danny Lamone. I could probably say his name. But he says, coach says, we got to do this. We got to do this. So he does it, and prevented him from getting the butt pinned in the state finals. And another kid that, and it says something about a character of a kid. He was in the finals as a sophomore, got beat in a close match, and was undefeated his junior year. And first round state tournament, he gets a kid from Illini Bluffs, and coached by Pat O'Connor, who was a legend, in Central Illinois, one of the greatest people in Central Illinois, great coach. But anyway, we're handling this kid pretty well until third period. When you're, the goal as a coach, you go by the book, your choice in a period is to choose down. Well, okay, that's a smart thing to choose down. Well, what happened was, realize this kid was pretty good on top. Turned us a couple times and beats his first round state tournament. This kid's credit, he came back, got third. The kid he beat in the sectional finals, beat him in the conference finals, goes on to win state title. Kind of a nice little play. That's the silver lining on the whole thing, because that kid was a good kid from Lyle. It was nice to see him win a state title. Well, the next year, we're getting ready, and that was when the weigh-in certification was, you had to wrestle 50%, weigh in at 50% of your weigh-ins at the weight class you're going to wrestle in a regional. We're getting up to Christmas, and I go to Jose and I say, okay, Jose, we got to make a decision. You got to start making 119 if you want to go to 19, because he thought he could make it. In fact, he was weighing about 22 or 23. So we got to start getting some weigh-ins in there. He says, well, have you looked at the kid from Illini Bluffs, where I used to get papers from Peoria, and I knew, find out where everybody was. And he says, have you seen where the kid from Illini Bluffs is at? I said, looks like he's at 25. I haven't seen him down below yet. He says, okay, I'm going to stay at 25. I said, okay, I just have one question. Are you staying at 25 because you don't want to go to 19? Or are you staying at 25 because you want to wrestle a kid from Illini Bluffs? He says, I want to wrestle a kid from Illini Bluffs. I says, okay, now I know where you're coming from, and I take my hat off to you. I respect you for that. And that's just something about his character. And he went on, wrestled a kid in finals. And, of course, now our strategy, I told him, I says, you're never going under this kid. You're never going under him. And I said, the minute you take him down, you let him go. Don't give him a chance to reverse you. He was under him for about 9 seconds in the second period, when in a flurry he got caught and the kid took him down. And it took the kid down I think 7 times, 9 times, something like that, to win a state title. Those are two things that stand out in your mind of something kids have done, and it says something about the kid that you have. You wonder if they did it on their own. I would just like to be in the chair.
Yeah. Some other things, we talked about what the IWCA did for COVID. We talked about what they did for girls. Some other things that just come to your memory, your mind, that the IWCA has done for Illinois wrestling. One, if you can expound on that a little bit too first, is the Illinois-Indiana duels. A lot of people don't know what those are.
This is an event that's held usually in March. Usually we've tried to hold it between the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. The hope was to get college coaches to get there, and we've had a good number of coaches make it. This came about, the IWCA had an event which called the Ultimate Duel, and we put Class A against 2A, Single A against Double A. Not a lot of the Single A kids, especially if they won a senior, you had to bring seniors in, they weren't interested. We had to fight to get that going. Sometimes we had to bring 3 or 4 kids in to mix and match and do stuff. You had to be creative. I was at the NCAA tournament with a friend of mine from Indiana, name's Andy Simon, and we got talking about stuff. And he said, "What about a duel with Illinois and Indiana?" And I thought that'd be a great idea. So he went to his organization. I went to the IWCOA. Says, "What do you guys think about doing it?" So we put it together. The first event was held at what used to be Wheaton Central High School. It's now Hubble Middle School, in 1994. And we've held it every year other than COVID years. It's been a great relationship. There's been some outstanding kids go at it, and we've grown we went from, originally we had the 1A against a team from Indiana and a 2A against a team from Indiana. And it would be, usually their top kid would go against a 2A, and say the kid was third, it was a senior, he'd go against a 1A. Well, the thing was, you got a 1A state champion who comes from a school like Dakota, it's got 250 kids in it. That third place winner from Indiana could be recruited by Purdue, come from a school like Carmel, it's got 4,500 kids in it. So you had a little disparity in there. So, but it's something that we worked with. And then we went to 3 classes in Illinois, and we had to get a little creative. And in Indiana we weren't interested in going with 3 teams. We didn't want to draft back to 1 team. So we got creative in rating the kids in Illinois. And Indiana still went with their one choice would be on the blue team, the other would be the red team. And we kind of rated the kids. We started with rating them, and then with Ryan Cumby coming in and being involved, we took 2 kids, we recruited 2 kids to come. You're going to wrestle. You're going to either be on Team Lincoln, you're going to be on Team Reagan, and on Saturday during workouts, Ryan would draw straws, and you're either on one or the other. It wasn't by choice of this guy's better, that guy's better, or anything like that. And it seemed to be work out better in a sense. It's just takes it out of our hands. And then of course, I think 3 years ago, we added the girls, and it's really cool to see these kids, and they've enjoyed it. All the kids that have participated have enjoyed it. We had good kids that have not been involved, which is disappointing in a way, but that's their call. I mean, you're not going to get everybody in it. But I do remember one of the classic matchups that we had. Illinois had a 3-time state champion, Conrad Poles. I believe the weight class was 160. And Indiana had this kid named Andrew Howe, and from Hanover Central. And we got that matchup, and it was probably one of the classic matchups that we've had in the duels. It ended up being a 5-3 match. Here you got a 2-time NCAA champion going against one of Illinois' best kids that we've had in a while. So it was really cool to watch that.
Cool. There are some other accomplishments, other than a few we've talked about. What are some other things that you think the IWCOA is, done well, brought to the consciousness of all the wrestling people out there? Let's keep tooting that horn at the IWCOA.
I think the involvement that we've had in some of the events, like the Midwest Nationals when it was starting out, we helped, fund a little bit of it, and once just to give seed, and then we'd always get the donation back. But we also, with personnel, our involvement in the Fresh Off State Series has been a huge benefit for the series and for the organization as well. Those are two real big ones that come to mind. What we've done as far as training the officials, I think we touched on that quite a bit, but that has made major strides in the quality of officials that are going out there now.
Well, since you're the first podcast interviewer, do you want to share one of the things we're going to do to help the IHSA out this year?
Yeah, I'd like to probably mention that I think every coach in the world, every coach in Illinois at least, maybe Iowa people don't care, but every coach in Illinois goes down to the state tournament. And I don't want to badmouth anybody else's programs or equipment or anything like that, but the mats that were at the state tournament were of deteriorating quality. And if you have to tape mats down to the floor to keep them from curling up, we got an issue.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The IHSA allowed us, I guess, that in working with the IHSA, the IWCOA, as well as Olympia High School and Hayworth High School, have put together a design, and we're purchasing 6 mats that are going to be used at the state tournament, both the individual in Champaign and the duels and girls tournament in Bloomington. It'll be a big step in improving the safety factor for the kids, so that they're wrestling on quality mats that they're brand new. They're going to be brand new. So, and aesthetics is going to be huge as well. The look is just going to be so much better. So I'm pleased. I'm happy that we got it going. I was involved in helping getting the designs going with Rich Montgomery, and Rich Montgomery did most of the legwork on contact and things, and the pieces fell together very nicely for all of us, and we're fortunate enough to be able to the organization has raised some funds in the last 15 years to work through obstacles like COVID and this we want to put to good use, benefit of the kids.
Yeah, and I think another thing that people don't realize about the IWCOA, they don't realize how both state tournaments are run, what it takes behind the scenes, if you can expound on that a little bit more. I mean, yes, they see us as officials, they see the coaches, but there's a lot more people that it takes to run those state tournaments.
You take everything from the weigh-in personnel to the guys handing out the packets to the people that are on Sunday getting the seeds together, everything from the regional tournament on. The IWCOA is involved in it in some way. So it takes a lot. And, you've got good leadership in Sam Knox and Randy Conrad dealing with everything. And there's so many events that are taking place at the state tournament that they're coordinating, where you've got the weigh-ins, you've got the start of the event, you've got the management of the personnel, you got the management of the table helpers, you got the management of the officials, you've got the grand march, you've got all of those things, the videos and everything that has to fall into place. It's just amazing, everything that goes in.
And I think one of the things Sam Knox, when he first, his first state tournament, I think he had said to me, the number of volunteers that show up and make this thing work. I think he was pretty amazed at how we did that. Because unlike other sports, we are in that building 3 long days. And for those volunteers to come down there and give up that kind of time and all that stuff is, I don't think a lot of people really realize, the IWCOA's impact in getting those people to get there. Not everybody's on those emails, the week of the dual team. You're sending out, still looking for volunteers to work tables.
It's amazing. And most of the people that are there, they really don't miss a beat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're on. You're going to have this or that, something happen. Did the officials throw 2 or 3 or whatever? But I don't know if they've ever recorded a wrong winner. Maybe they have, but I don't think that ever being an issue.
Not in my lifetime.
And that happens in tournaments all the time.
Yes. They do such an outstanding job. Our volunteer staff, they are so professional. They make our lives as officials very, very simple. Now with the creation of track wrestling and all the electronics. About 50 minutes ago, you were talking about how you brought the IWCOA into the typewriter age. I'm not going to say computer age. You brought him to the typewriter. I remember, I don't know what meeting we were at, and I looked at you, and I'll bust out Nate Kesson because he and I joke about this all the time about you. You kill more trees than anybody we know. You are the paper master. But you were talking about how you brought these guys out of the paper era. I don't know if you are the paper king. That's all I got. You are full of paper. I think it was the last meeting you were talking about something, getting us on Microsoft Word or something. And I looked at you and said, why can't we just use Google? And I pointed to Mick Torres, because when we go to Mick Torres's meetings, at the National Hall of Fame Illinois chapter, there's very little paper.
That's not true. Everybody comes to the National Hall of Fame. They've already printed what Mick has out, and then Mick already brings copies. So throw me on.
You got to admit, Mr. Cliff, you are the killer of trees.
But I didn't have much at the last meeting. I just had the agenda and the financial report.
You know what? I'm still going through them. You can't see them here in my room. The mail outs and the handouts you give us for the Hall of Fame meeting. I got more folders here, than I got anything else in this house. I got full of Hall of Fame folders. But no, you do an outstanding job of keeping us organized. I don't think we thank you enough. And like you said, you don't do it for the awards. You do it because it needs to be done. And you have been an example to a lot of us coming up and who are part of the organization. I know we want to get more people to, even if you don't come and join us, come and see what we're about, listen to what we're doing. And I think this is one of them, because you and I think Rob Porter had the idea, let's get a podcast out there. Let's show the people who we are, what we do, and tell our story, other than, they see our logo, at the awards banquet, they see us, I think one of the best things you guys ever did was bring the Hall of Fame inductees down to the state tournament on Friday night.
That was another thing that the IHSA let us do. It's another place for them to be. There's how many thousands of people there. They get to see these guys that are being inducted. It nobody else would know it otherwise.
Right. And the Grand Marshals, the Grand Marshals that you guys have been getting down there. To hear the Rudiger brothers story all at once like that was amazing. I tell you,
that was when we're the COVID year. And the cool thing about that was Roy Snyder was the president at the time, and we wanted to set up a Zoom meeting with them. And they kind of had an idea, and they were having a little trouble technology wise because, you know, there some a couple are a little older than I am. But anyway, they had daughters and that would be able to set it up for them. So be able to tell all five of them, and Roy did a nice job and inviting them to be grand marshals for the state tournament. And I think it was 22 that they were grand marshals. And that was a cool event. It made them feel neat because they were all right there together getting it. It wasn't like, you know, when you make phone call to one, and you call number two, well, number one's already called number five, and then it takes a little bit away. But now all of them know at once that they were going to be grand marshals.
No, and and again, another kudos I want to throw out to you. Even though I'm over there also, you stepped up and you've been helping in National Wrestling Hall of Fame Illinois chapter. Shameless plug for that organization, but we're going to throw it out there.
Oh yeah,
we're the member of two, because again, it's all about Illinois wrestling. And I think you've alluded to it a lot during this conversation. We're here to help everybody. We've done things to help the IESA after they came out of COVID. We've done stuff for them. We're not just here to serve the IHSA. We try to serve anybody that needs our help.
After the COVID year, from the proceeds of the state tournament that we ran, which we thought we were going to lose $20,000 to $30,000, we ended up making a little bit more than that proceeds out of it. We took those proceeds and generated them back into the IHSA by purchasing the awards for the 2022 tournament and purchasing the award for the IESA for their 2022 tournament. Because both those organizations were hit hard. The IHSA, wrestling can't afford to lose the IHSA. We can't afford to lose the IESA. They just do too much for all kinds of kids, and it's not feasible for us to let them suffer. It's our role to give something back to those organizations that suffered quite a bit. I mean, IESA lost 2 years of the state tournament for them. Those guys were coming through that just graduated. They were seventh graders when the first year. So these seniors last year didn't have a junior high state tournament their seventh or eighth grade year, which was a shame.
No, it was. I'm proud of the work that people like you and Roy, like you mentioned, Roy and Nate, and we'd be remiss. I'm gonna have a hard time probably getting her to do a podcast, Debbie Nason. But she's very instrumental.
Yeah, hard getting her on a Zoom call.
Yeah, yes.
But people don't realize how big of an impact she's had as well.
Yeah, man. I'd love to get Augie on here and get a lot of good stories, but I'd spend too much time beeping out the choice words.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see if we can get him cleaned up and get him over here to tell it. I think people would just love to hear from a guy like that. I'll tell you one of my most memories that I still cherish, other than some of the officials and some of the coaches I met. Red Schmidt. The knowledge that Red Schmidt had, because I was around him because he was our de facto head official. He didn't ref anymore, but he was there to share his stories and knowledge. And I try to tell new officials and midline officials, always look to those that were before you, that are still in front of you, and talk to them. Hear their story. That's why I started this out. Let's get to know Joe Cliffe, because believe it or not, this podcast is going to exist in the internet. Let's just for the rest, we'll be long gone, and somebody's going to go back and find this and get to know who Joe Cliffe was and say, "Wow, I wish I had got to talk to that guy." I mean, I still miss a Red Schmidt because his knowledge of things. He came before books. Let's just be real. Red was old.
Yeah, I remember the last time I saw him, he told me this was going to be his last state tournament, probably 88 or 89 or 90, and just the fact that he told me, he didn't have to tell me. I was just some guy doing whatever at the time, and I just felt honored to be able to talk to him and to feel like I was a colleague of his. And like you said, the knowledge that he had, guys like he and Ed Ewald and Jack Lease and Sam Samorian, and they were just treasures that we should have gotten them on podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Ed's still around and he's doing well. 96 years old. It's amazing. You can listen to stories of him for an hour.
Oh yeah, and Jack Lease was coming around all the time, and
Yeah, Jack
got
was.
to hear stuff. Yeah.
He was at the Hall of Fame selection meeting till the year he passed away.
So as we wrap this up, Mr. Cliff, a couple of things I just want to pick your brain on. What do you see? Now, from because I'm an official, I always like to look at it from the rule side. What coaches think. People like you, with all your vast experience, what do you see as some of the more significant changes to wrestling? I know when you wrestled, it was crew cuts. I'm not going to date you too far back. I've seen pictures from the 60s where there was no shirts. The guys were wearing tights and short. Yeah. So, you've seen a lot of the rule changes for the decade I've been on the wrestling committee at the Federation. But what do you see as some of the more significant changes, and how do you think they've impacted the athletes of today?
I think probably a couple of the huge ones. First of all, some of the safety is major. Cutting down on some of the injuries. It's going to make the sport better. It's going to last longer. I mean, that's what, quite frankly, that is could be a death knell for football, is if they don't clean things up. But safety is a huge factor. Mom's not going to let her little boy wrestle if there's a chance of him getting his head tore off. So the safety and training the officials to recognize illegal holds or rules that are holds that may not be illegal yet but could be harmful or bad situations. That's it. The other thing is I love the fact that we're able to come back in a match with a 3-point takedown and a 4-point near fall in snap of the finger, and it puts more emphasis on being aggressive on your feet. I don't have to worry about riding somebody, because if I let him go and take him down, I'm up 2 points, not just one. And I don't have to, I can take more risks. And those are a couple of big ones right there. The fact that I can be on top of somebody and I don't have to bar him up and get him locked up or rock up a cradle. I can tilt him, get two quickly like that, and come to the other side and get the same hold the other way and get two. That livens up the sport quite a bit. It's kind of a little bit more moving towards kind of freestyle when you see, Spencer Lee tech fall a guy after one takedown in 30 seconds because with that leg lace that he does, boom, boom, boom. I mean, we're not high school wrestling's not the freestyle yet, but it'll be a long way before it is. But I think that it's a move which may help evolve wrestling to that and also make it livelier. If you're going to score points, it entices people. Nobody likes to watch a 1-0 match.
Right. So, in conclusion of this, what do you think you would like to see going forward? It doesn't have to be a rule change. It could be something administrative that you think the IHSA could do. As you're talking, what do you see that we could do next to enhance our sport?
I would like to see all 4 classes together in a state tournament finals. I think that would be entertaining. I would like to see the duels before the individuals. I think that would highlight the individual. That's culmination of the season. Down the road, it'd be nice to see a girls' dual meets. Those are 3 things that would probably be cool.
That's one of the things we didn't give the IWCOA credit for, the girls' team state tournament. If you want to talk about that, for a few seconds.
I wasn't at the meet. I was just, I had a commitment. I couldn't be there, but all I heard was good things, not only by the people that ran it and Nate Cuss and what he put together and the administration up in the States and Leo Clark and getting stuff going, and the kids that were there, they had a positive experience in a dual meet setting for girls. I heard them talking about we just need to get a couple more girls in here. We would have done this had we had a kid this weight class. That's what wrestling the boys coaches think about. I got to fill that 20-pounder. I need to get a heavyweight. I need to get a 6-pounder. And the girls, when coaches start thinking about that, and that's what the dual meet state series has done. Used to be, you could have 4 kids win a state title, 3 kids, and that's all you needed. Now you better have a good lineup. And not that the individual scoring wasn't fine, but in 1967, Rock Island won state title with 2 kids. And when DeKalb won it the next year, the headline was DeKalb puts the term team back in the sport. We had 4 kids down there. We had the most kids in the place at the state tournament that year. Obviously, that's how you get that many points. Anyway, those are. I think that would entice the coaches to care about. Not that they don't care, but I think it's just it'll rattle their cage a little bit to make them aware that I need to get another kid out. I need to get 2 more kids out. I can step out in the hall and get this kid. How many kids have walked in halls and been recruited by a junior high social studies teacher and made good in the sport, had a good experience? And they don't have to be a state champion, state place winner, or state qualifier to have a positive experience and enjoy this sport, because sport's supposed to be for everybody, not for the guys that are elite and the winners. And I've cried with kids in the corner, and they walked away after that defeat, and still knowing that they had a positive experience in the sport. And I think a dual meet does set that up. It encourages kids to be involved, and everybody's cheering for them. And that's what sports is all about.
Yes, and wholeheartedly. Not only are we the world's oldest sports, and I remind a lot of people about that, we've been around since the biblical days. It's just what wrestling does for the individual. Just the individual person, and you've touched on that. This has been great. Nate Kessin's probably gonna fuss at me. I've kept you up, past your bedtime, as he would say. But thank you for being our first.
Hey, I appreciate you taking the reins, and I know this was something I came up with a couple of years ago and at meetings, and I had an idea, but I didn't have the tool set. I didn't have the toolbox to put it together, and I'm glad that you stepped up and took it over, and this works.
No, and I think this is good. Like I said, what we're really doing right now is recording the history. You've given us a lot of, how things got started, how things moved along, how things work. I know Don McKill, I think he had kind of started this, where we all have to write down what we do as committee chairman, and you keep pushing us hard that let's get this in writing so the next generation has the roadmap. And I think this podcast will be part of that roadmap.
Exactly.
We go down the road. So again, I personally want to thank you in front of everybody that's going to watch this in the future.
Thanks for taking it over. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was great. And, I just can't thank you enough for everything you've done for the sport of wrestling and what you will continue to do, because for some reason this committee won't let you go.
That's all right. That's okay with me.
You'll be doing this 10 years after death. Well, they'll just taxiderm you.
Wait till you see the plan I got in place for the next couple of months.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
You might enjoy our June meeting site.
No, got something good coming, huh?
We might have. We'll see if it works out.
All right. Well, thank you once again, and like I always sign off. Thank you everyone for tuning in with my talk with the wonderful and the honorable Joe Cliffe. And as you see him, at events, go up. Say, man, I saw you on the podcast. That was great. And even if you didn't see him on the podcast, but you heard about it, because my plan to do with these podcasts, we're going to have the video portion. That's why we did it this way. And I'm also going to load these up for the old traditional podcast people. I'm going to have this out on Spotify and other places for those who just like to listen to you and I ramble for an hour without watching us on video. I mean, we're not winning no beauty awards here today, but that's okay. So again, I thank you for everything you do, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night, everybody.